Hey, welcome. Today we're diving into something pretty cool, a movement that's taking one of the world's oldest faiths and making it work for our busy modern lives. It's called Humanistic Buddhism, and really, it flips the whole purpose of belief on its head.
And it all kicks off with this really powerful question. What if faith wasn't about trying to get away from the world, but about learning how to live more fully in it? I mean, think about that. That's the big idea we're going to unpack today.
So, to really get why this movement even started, you gotta look at the problem it was trying to solve. You see, over hundreds of years, some Buddhist traditions had picked up all these practices that, well, for a lot of people, they just felt totally disconnected from real, everyday life. Okay, so let's break down the diagnosis. A really key figure here, Master Hsing Yun, he looked at the state of things and saw that Buddhism was kind of getting bogged down by superstition. Things like fortune-telling and feng shui. The focus had drifted way off from the here and now and onto gods and ghosts and what happens after you die. The teachings were becoming super abstract, almost promoting this idea that you should detach from your family and society, like life was just this negative thing you had to suffer through or escape from.
Yeah, as Master Hsing Yun himself said, the faith was carrying this heavy burden. And the goal? It wasn't to create some brand new religion. Nope. It was all about getting back to the basics, back to the Buddha's original human-centered teachings.
And that's where the solution comes in. Humanistic Buddhism. Again, this wasn't about some radical new idea. It was framed as a return to the Buddha's original intent, a faith for actual people, living in the actual world. So what is it, really? Well, put simply, it's a philosophy that just redirects the focus. It pulls it away from the divine and back to the human, away from the afterlife and back to this life, and away from hiding out in a monastery and back into engaging with society. And honestly, the whole thing is kind of wrapped up in this one amazing phrase. With transcendent thought, do worldly work. So what's that mean? It means you take all that deep wisdom from Buddhist teachings, but instead of using it to check out from the world, you use it to engage with the world, but better, right? More effectively, more compassionately.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work in practice? This is where it gets really interesting, because this is where the philosophy stops being just an idea and becomes real, totally changing what it even means to practice your faith.
And what's so cool here is this fundamental shift in focus. It's a move away from just practicing religion and toward cultivating the mind. So instead of just focusing on external stuff like chanting and rituals, the real work becomes internal. Actually changing your bad habits, improving your character. Instead of thinking you need to escape to a mountain, your practice happens right in the middle of your life, at work, with your family. And forget about just seeking blessings from some outside force. This is all about cultivating your own inner strength and self-reliance. And this really breaks down into four main ideas. First up, substance over form. It's about who you are on the inside, not just the rituals you perform on the outside. Second, this life, right here, right now, matters. Your job, your family, hey, even doing the dishes, that can be your practice. Third, you gotta engage with society. Serving other people isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a core part of your spiritual path. And finally, it all comes back to cultivating the mind. Purifying your thoughts and taking ownership of your own inner peace. It's about weaving your faith into every single part of your life. But it's not just about changing how you practice. This philosophy goes even deeper. It actively reframes some of those old traditional ideas to create a much more positive and, honestly, empowering way to look at life itself. Just look at this shift in thinking. Where some old interpretations might have said money is a poisonous snake, humanistic Buddhism says, hey, wealth can be a powerful tool to help a lot of people. Or instead of seeing your spouse as a karmic enemy you're stuck with, you see them as a spiritual partner on life's journey. And get this, children aren't debt collectors from a past life. No way. They're budding bodhisattvas, future enlightened beings that we get to nurture. It's a total flip from a negative viewpoint to one that sees opportunity everywhere. And to make sure the message doesn't get watered down or go off track, the teachings are always checked against these four principles. First, is it authentic? Like, is it something the Buddha actually taught? Second, is it relevant? Does it actually help people with their lives today? Third, is it beneficial? Does it help purify your mind? And finally, is it inspiring? Is it presented in a way that's good and beautiful? It's a great filter, right? All right, so this all sounds really good, right? But the big question is, does it work in the real world? Well,
The proof is in the pudding. Let's take a look at how this philosophy exploded from just an idea into a massive global movement.
You can kind of trace the journey starting back in the late 70s, with the first major temple being built in the US. But a huge turning point was 1992, when the BLIA, the International Buddhist Light Association, was founded. Suddenly, there was this global network for regular, everyday practitioners. And that spirit of reaching out just kept growing, leading to more interfaith dialogue and eventually even record-breaking gatherings with people from all kinds of different faiths. It just shows how deep that commitment to harmony really is.
And just to put that growth into perspective for you, today, the BLI has chapters in over 70 countries. 70! That is a massive global footprint. And the craziest part? It wasn't built over centuries. We're talking about just a few decades. That's what happens when you have a message that really, truly connects with people today. So what's the secret sauce? How did they pull this off? Well, a huge part of it is this core principle of localization. The idea is that you don't show up and try to force your culture on everyone else. Instead, you give to the local culture, you adapt, you respect their customs, and you work to create harmony with other religions. It's all about fitting in, not taking over. Which brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. After all this talk about society and daily life and global movements, at the end of the day, Humanistic Buddhism brings the focus right back to one place: you, the individual. And it's all captured in this one simple but incredibly bold statement: I am Buddha. Now, hold on. That's not about being arrogant or egotistical. It's a statement of radical responsibility. It's about fully realizing that the potential for wisdom, for compassion, for enlightenment, it isn't in some far-off heaven or in some other person. It's right here, inside of you. What this means, ultimately, is that your liberation, your inner peace, it's not something that's going to be granted to you by a god or some external force. It is something you achieve yourself, through your own effort, your own choices, your own work cultivating your mind. The power and the responsibility is yours. And so that really leaves us with one final question to chew on. In this crazy, complex world we live in, with all its distractions and challenges, what does it really mean to be your own spiritual guide? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.